Hello, my name is Thorsten Beck. I studied mathematics, did a PhD in nuclear physics, and studied Tantra at Sri Kali Ashram in India. Throughout my life, I have been looking for knowledge that helps me to understand the world in its roots. That is why I decided to study this ancient science. But unfortunately, I have to find out that even mathematics has its limits. Rather late in my studies, I learned to know about Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorem. What does this theorem say? Well, to come to the theorem, first have a look on how mathematics is constructed. So, mathematics is built out of three parts. So there are theorems, axioms, and definitions. The definitions, they build the vocabulary of mathematics. The axioms are basic assumptions which need no proof. And the theorems, they're also assumptions, but they are proven with the tools of mathematics, and when you have a proof, you call them a theorem. So Kurt Gödel stated, he had the assumption and he also proved it with the tools of mathematics, that mathematics has its limits. So there are statements in the mathematics where it cannot be proven that they are wrong or right. So to say in ordinary words, mathematics is a precise science, but it has limits. But within its limits, it is still precise. Similar phenomenon can be observed in quantum mechanics. What do we want to do now? We want to build a bridge from a materialistic worldview to a spiritual worldview. To see, when you talk about logical, determined steps, as we learn it in our schools and universities, by using those steps, how we can finally end up figuring out that the spiritual worldview is very valuable. What are the difference between a materialistic worldview and a spiritual worldview? A materialistic worldview assumes that life evolves from matter, so you have more and more complicated structures of matter, and out of that, life, plants, consciousness, us human beings, develops out of this more and more complicated structures of matters. So life is born out of the dead matter. And in the spiritual worldview, it is the other way around. It is assumed that first there is life, there is something like a consciousness, and this consciousness does want to experience itself, and because of that develops, creates the material world. We think because the universe thinks, and we have a body because the universe has a body. So in the tantric way of describing life, human consciousness, would be like that. Let's say medicine, neurology, and psychiatry, they analyze the brain and try to find out where the consciousness is located, so they know precisely how the brain works. They can name all the parts of the brain and what are they doing, and they know precisely what they are for, but they cannot point out where my consciousness is located. So maybe my consciousness is not located within me. Maybe I am not in my body, but my body is in me. Maybe I'm not in the world, but the world is in me. So when we, for example, look at a radio, so a radio, a news speaker speaks the news, and he reads the news. You can listen in your living room to the news, but when you look into your radio, you open the screws and look in the radio, you will not find a speaker. There is no one in the radio. You will find different electronic components, but there is no person speaking the news, because the person is not in the radio. The reader sits somewhere in the radio station and reads the news, and then electromagnetic waves getting sent out, and your radio receives these waves and transforms the signals into speech. So you can do whatever you want with your radio. You can drive with a car around it, you can smash it. The speaker in the radio station doesn't care about. He does not know what you do with your radio. So maybe our body is, so this is the way, the tantric perspective of life. So we are receiving us. Yeah, a plane flies over us. Hopefully it's getting less noisy soon. So these two perspectives, this is a little bit like Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. Here in this theory, it is also of great importance from which perspective you are looking. For example, you sit in a train and a car drives next to you on the road parallel to the train. Then the speed of the car you're observing is the speed of the car minus the speed of the train. So this is called the relative speed. When you stand on the road, the car passes by, so the car has its absolute speed. So from your point of view, it has a very different speed now. Today we learn in school, in university, like reductionist approach on science. So in physics, in biology, in medicine. Medicine, you can see it very clear. You have a doctor for the eyes, you have a doctor for the skin, you have a doctor for your nerve system. You have for many, many things different doctors. And they fragment even us human beings into different parts and specialize in one field. But this always looks into one point and doesn't see holistic understanding, like when you have a problem, that this problem also relates to your whole system and not just to one single part of it. The science today, with their reductionist approach, they say experiments have to be repeatable and they have to deliver every time the same results. So, for example, we take gravity. You pick up a stone, let it go. It drops to the ground. So you see the gravity of the stone and the earth, they attract each other and the stone falls down. You sit down, you think, and you invent a gravitation theory like Sir Isaac Newton did. And then you test the theory, you think about experiments, and you apply the theory, and you calculate how the stone accelerates and with what speed it hits the ground. So you find out with your equations, you make very good assumptions. Then you give your friends, you invite friends from the whole world, explain your theory, you explain how you do it, and you ask them to do the same. So they travel home, and wherever they live, they repeat the experiments and calculate how the stones fall down. After a while, you're meeting again, and you're comparing the results, and very fast you find out that you have very similar results. You find out the gravitation theory is repeatable at any time, at any place, by anyone, and it always will deliver results how an object is falling to the ground. So now we wanna test that approach. So that approach is, you observe a phenomenon, you develop a theory, you think about experiments, you calculate the results of the experiments, you apply the experiment, and then you compare the calculated results with the measured results, and if they are good, you keep on using your theory. If they don't match, you have to overwork your theory, or maybe you have to discard it. Now we test that approach. This is the approach commonly used in nowadays science, and also in a materialistic world. It makes a lot of sense that things have to be repeatable. So now we come to step into quantum mechanics. Don't be afraid. We don't do mathematical equations or anything. We just talk about phenomena. We just talk about how these phenomena look like, and we try to understand the phenomena and what implications these phenomena have for us, for our life, and how we should live our life. What quantum mechanics can tell us about how we live our life. In quantum mechanics, they are talking about the wave-particle dualism. And in the wave-particle dualism, so this is like a quanta photon can behave like a wave, or it can behave like a particle. So it has a dualistic behavior. And this can be very nicely observed in the so-called double-slit experiment. So I'm gonna explain you how this experiment works. So you have a light source, monochromatic light. So I have light which is just one wavelength, not necessarily a laser. A laser, all the waves are at the same up and down movement, but in a monochromatic light, so the waves can be shifted, but they all have the same length. And so you have this light source, then you have a middle wall which has a slit, and on the back side you have a screen where you can observe the light. So you switch on the light passes the slit, and on the screen on the back side you observe a white stripe. So now you open a second slit in our dividing wall. We switch on again our light source, our photon source, and then we observe the experiment. And something amazing happens, something unexpected, because you do not observe two stripes of light, but many stripes of light getting weaker from the inside to the outside. Wow, this was not expected, but we were speaking about this wave-particle thing. So now we observe a tank of water. We have a water tank which is divided in two partitions, and the middle wall has two slots. So we drop on one side a stone into the water waves, they come out in circles, then they hit the middle wall, and on the other side of the slit, two new water waves start, and then they overlay each other. This is called interference pattern, and this interference pattern moves to the back of our tank. And what you see, the waves you see on the back side of the tank, is the same wavelet patterns as you see when you have the two slits open and with our light experiment. So you have the light source, you have the middle wall with the two slits, and on the back side you see suddenly not two stripes in that case, you see many. The wave patterns from our light experiment and our water experiment is just the same. That brings us to the idea, okay, now the light is behaving like waves, but waves don't have a position. A water wave, where you drop a stone, a water wave is coming out, and there is no position of this ring of water wave. The ring is in the ring area everywhere at the same time. So it has not a position like my body on the video camera. So it is, and so now we want to We want to analyze our experiment more detailed, how this wave particle thing behaves. So we mount little detectors on the wall, on our dividing wall where the slits are. Next to the slits we mount these little detectors, and we switch on our experiment once more. So then, again, nature is playing games with us, and something incredible happens, because the wave pattern disappears, and now we see the two light stripes on the back screen. We dismount the detectors, the wave pattern comes back. We mount the detectors, the wave pattern disappears. What does that mean? So when we observe our experiment, the result gets changed from the wave pattern result towards like when you shoot, you have two windows open and you shoot with a machine gun on there, and then on the inside you see like where the projectiles hit the wall. So this you can see, and now you see something like this with our light experiment when we mount the detectors. We dismount them, and then the wave pattern comes back. So the detectors, they were something like an observer. Like us, we are also an observer. So the detectors observe the experiment, and by that observation, in physics they say the wave function is collapsing, and then it is creation happening now. The photon is created, the position of the photon is created in that moment. So by observing the experiment, you change the outcome of the experiment. This is of really great importance for our view of ourselves and our approach, how we went into life, because the world is not just out there. It does not exist independent of us. We are in a deep interconnection with the world, and we are influencing each other. While we are observing nature behaves slightly different, like with our experiment. So this is the only radical thing you have to do, but it is so radical, it is so hard, because of a tendency to think that the world is already out there, independently existing of us. But it is not. Quantum mechanics is very clear about that. I hope I can make you interested, curious about having a deeper look into all the spiritual paths, the traditional spiritual paths in the world, because they have this phenomenon of uncertainty already interwoven in their philosophy, like Buddhism, like Tantra, like shamanism, whatever. They all have it. And I wish you have a deeper look into it to find out why we are here and what is our purpose to be here in life. Yeah, I thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and it would be nice when you put in the comment area some comments, some questions, whatever you like. I will be happy to answer them. I wish you a good time. Bye.